Like, I'm pretty confident. This isn't one of those teams where it's like you look at it like, yeah, they're just a disaster. Like, they look like a mess. They don't know who they are. I think they know exactly who they are. I think they know how they want to play the game, and I think they're coached extremely well. Like, I say it like when you look at the way that this team's built, offense, defense. If you just roll through their depth chart, you'd be like, how does this team 13-5? I mean, most people would be like,
Hmm.
this doesn't make any sense. But that's how well they're coached, and you see it situationally, especially on offense. They're great situationally across the board. So I think that we have a lot of matchups that are favorable, and I think that the whole rushing quarterback, that kind of thing, I'm sure we'll get to that. Like, I think it's a good building block of what we've had to deal with over the last few weeks, and it potentially could be a great step if we handle business into a game with a team like Philly that could just expand on that even more with better personnel. So I'm fairly confident, but I think that this team has no lack of identity, and I think that they have nothing to lose in a game like this. So I think that they can just leave it all out there, run some trick plays, and I think when you have a coach that's that good, I think we match up better across the board than they do, but I think that they're going to have some craziness for us.
Yeah, and so and then as we kind of like move forward into the offense and whatnot, with like Jayden Daniels obviously being a rookie and winning that first playoff game with him, and now going into Detroit, is there like a plan that you guys think that you guys would probably benefit from with Jayden Daniels being a rookie? He obviously likes to run out of the pocket a lot. He's very confident when he is in the pocket, but does use his legs a lot. Is there a way that you guys think that you're going to utilize different defensive mechanisms to maybe perhaps rattle him early so that he's not as comfortable in the pocket or isn't able to use his legs as often? Because they usually really rely on Jayden Daniels in games like this.
Yeah, I mean, I saw the stat. I mean, third highest scramble yards. I mean, he's got almost 600 scramble yards this season. It's insane. From what I've seen so far, and knowing kind of Aaron Glenn, my assumption is that there's going to be plenty of early down blitzing. I think the biggest thing for them will be like, yo, we just want to create one negative, and that seems to be kind of the common thread of when a drive does stall out or something goes bad or he throws an interception. Just let the first play not be a positive. I think that's where Washington's so tough, is they're constantly positive, even if it's not the big play. Big plays with them, with Jayden, can be created on anything. It doesn't have to be a shot. It can be a check down. It can be something after catch. It can be him taking off and scrambling. So I think for them, it's like everything just has to stay positive. They don't have a great offensive line. They'll move him out of the pocket to protect him from that. They'll get the ball up fast to protect him from that. So I think the Lions are going to do everything they can to be like, can't get cooked by the run. They're one of the best rushing teams in football. And we just want to create one negative. We just want it to be 2nd and 9. And all of a sudden, everything opens up for him. So my guess will be is that Brian Branch is going to be blitzing a ton from the slot. They're going to be bringing him off the edge because they don't pick up that very well already. And because everything happens I mean, they do a great job because nothing's really under center for him. I mean, he gets to see everything. You're not going to catch him like blind spot. He didn't expect that, and here comes the pressure. So he'll see a lot of these things happening, but at first they're going to want to try to stop the run, I think, by bringing an extra rusher just to make sure that there's nothing positive there. And then I think you just have to challenge them on early downs. Like, you have to make them create one negative somewhere there. So that'd be my assumption. And I think when you see them, it's like, I don't know how often that they're going to lean crazy heavily into like disguising and trying to confuse him necessarily, because I think that's what they do really well. Like, from what I've seen, I think they do a really good job pre-snap of like, he kind of knows where to go with the football a lot. It's rare that he doesn't, but from what I've seen so far, I think if anything, the middle of the field, you just can't you have to make that cloudy. You have to make him get to like number 3, because I don't think their offensive line is going to hold up, even with how banged up our front is. So just make it cloudy over the middle. If you look at the receivers, it's Terry as their number 1. Those take shots to him one-on-one. And then their number 2 is Zacchaeus. I mean, he has half the receptions as Terry. Their number 2 is Zach Ertz. So for me, it's like, yo, cloudy up the middle of the field, a lot of single high safety, I would assume, and then bring some pressure on early downs, because my assumption is you just need them to go backward one time, and then you're going to get off the field. That'll weigh up your chances of getting off the field because they're not really built to play that style.
One question I have. Jayden Daniels, which is weird for rookie quarterbacks, but he's kind of the Derrick Henry of quarterbacks. He gets better as the game goes on. If you isolate his fourth quarter stats, they're insane. I think he has like 12 touchdowns and almost 2,000 yards just in the fourth quarter this year, which is wild. Is there concern, or I guess in your opinion, that the Lions, who are used to playing ahead, they're not really used to playing from behind a lot, that their defense won't be able to necessarily have the stamina to kind of keep up with prime Jayden Daniels in the fourth quarter?
That's an interesting question. I think, well, one, we've been the best team, between second and third quarter in terms of point differential. It's like by a wide margin. So from that perspective, like, I expected the Lions believe that they're going to have a lead going into half or coming out of the half at some point there. And to that point, I think aggressively, if they win the toss, they're going to receive and they're going to try to go put up points for that exact reason. They just want this dude flying from behind. I don't know that I feel that way, because I feel like with Alex back, and again, what they've had to deal with the last few weeks, like I think a lot of the things, schematically speaking, like occasionally you are just going to have some breakdowns there. It's just going to happen. But I don't expect it to be that messy. Like, I think it was super messy against Buffalo. But I don't think that Jayden brings the same approach that Buffalo was able to bring. I don't think he brings the same threat level. So I don't know that I feel like they'll run out of gas necessarily. But I guess to your question, you're like, if it's like a tight game, like if the Lions aren't playing with lead or if they're losing necessarily, I think you're looking at it from that. Well, that's probably going to isolate the Lions into being a little more straightforward, which is like, hey, we can't play any two deep safety. We have to stop the run. And if you look at their splits, when they play one deep safety, they're one of the best run defenses in football. When they have two deep, they're one of the worst run defenses in football. They give up 5.5 yards a carry there. So for me, I think it'll just simplify it, and it'll just be about winning. And that's where Terry will probably become the guy. So at that point, it'll probably just come down to straightforward matchups. Like, is Terrion Arnold okay against Zaccheaus? I assume he'll be okay. And then how does Amik Robertson do with Terry McLaurin? If there's not a ton of help directly over top in those spots, because it'll be a little more of a straightforward approach. So I think then those matchups just become everything. And again, I still like those matchups for us, but that becomes everything.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say, you wouldn't flip at any point to double covering Terry at any point, would you? Because I know, like, during the Tampa game, it looked like a lot of times in the defensive coverage, it looked like they would, instead of doing like a one-on-one man-to-man coverage, they would have like double or triple covering just Terry McLaurin, just because he's that guy Jayden Daniels is always looking for. I mean, you hand it off to Austin Eckler or somebody like that, yeah, but when Jayden Daniels isn't running on his own, he's usually looking for this guy. So I just didn't know if, like, you were confident with just the one-on-ones, or if you thought that maybe they're going to go more in like a, kind of let maybe a double coverage situation, or I didn't know what you thought with this situation with him.
Yeah, no, I think you should definitely be open to that. And I've actually opened up more and more the idea. At first I wasn't with it, but I've opened up to it more. I think especially on first down. Like, we're talking about being aggressive on first down. That's a great spot. I kind of hit on the beginning. Like, if you're going to bring Branch on some of these blitzes, you go to zone, you keep two deep over top, and that's typically how the Lions will do it. They'll bring a slot, they'll have four underneath, and then they'll have their two deep safeties. And that in some ways can still help bracket in Terry McLaurin, who we've probably seen does a lot of things still out wide. That's typically his alignment. So if that's the case, you can make sure that that's kind of the look that you're getting. So I have no issue with that. And then on third down, I don't have an issue with it. I kind of doubt that Glenn will play that style. My assumption would be against this old line that he'll be a little bit more attacking against this team. But if Aaron Glenn wants to pull a little bit from what he did against Minnesota, on third down, they were sending a lot of times their single safety, or if it was two deep safeties, one of them would just go straight bracket Justin Jefferson. So they could do the exact same thing, and I have no problem with it. I wouldn't even have a problem in some of those spots. It's like, yo, the only deep safety we have, just go bracket McLaurin, and just it makes somebody else just go win. I would have no issue with that, because from what I've seen, I'd like to see who else could win there. Like, who actually is going to get open? Is it going to be Zach Ertz? Is he really going to kill you against Branch or Iffy in those spots? Like, I'd love to see that play out. I'd love to make them find that answer. So Glenn, I assume, will just be aggressive, and he's just going to bring extra rushers, and if anything, just leave one back deep in the middle. But I have no issue with doubling, especially on early downs. If you're going to be aggressive, I have no issue with it. It's kind of like a mix of doubling, I guess, but that's where I would open that up.
Yeah. So I think that might be like kind of like the basis of like my defense questions. I actually had like one like offense related question for you as well.
Okay.
Kind of just like switching gears briefly, but so going into this game as well, the one thing with the Commanders is, as I mentioned, like a 12-5 team, they're also kind of all over the place when it comes to defense. Like offense, they're kind of in a normal spot, but one of the things that I'm asking you, and I kind of am assuming I know the answer, but do you think we're going to see more runs from the Lions, considering that the Commanders are bottom tier when it comes to the rush compared to the passing, when they're like top tier, where they have allowed like the third or fourth least amount of yards?
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, and the thing is, like, nobody throws the ball against them. I mean, they have the second lowest pass attempts against them this season, I think it is. So nobody really throws the ball. They're giving up 190 yards per game, to your point. One of the worst run defenses in football across all categories. I think the problem is they just don't have the guys in terms of depth. Like whenever the rotation starts to happen, it's just they don't have the dudes. Sheldon Day gets out there, he's pushed around. They got pieces, and you'll get occasional plays, and Armstrong or Payne will do something. But Newton's flashed a little bit. He'd be the guy at circle because he's actually made some big plays over the last few weeks, just like some subtle plays that he gets thrown in there. But for the most part, I just don't think they have the full rotation. So if no one aligns, they're just going to want to make them start to rotate guys in and just push them around. I'm sure they're going to try to lean super heavily into that. But I think that the big thing off of it is they play a lot of single high safety. And I think typically when we get into those matchups, that's where the pass game becomes very explosive for the Lions. Soon as teams get to that, and the Lions typically try to get teams to that. Team like Minnesota, it was weird because they're complete opposite. They're always going to keep two deeps over top, and it almost like dares the Lions to run. And if they can go at it, then they will. And they didn't really do it as well without Monty early in the last game. But Washington, from what I've seen, and we'll see if they continue true to this, they're pretty much straightforward. Like, yeah, we're not doing that. We're playing one guy deep. And again, knowing the Lions off of that, that's where they're going to create explosives. They're going to create big chunk plays off of that. So, yeah, my assumption would be they're going to try to run the heck out of the football like you're saying. They're going to try to make them get to a rotation where guys start coming in and then just create their explosives off. I mean, this has the makings of the offense should be in its comfort zone a lot in this game. Like, it absolutely should be in its comfort zone to have the big play action plays. All the cliche things that we talk about, it's in its comfort zone in this game. It should be in there.
Perfect.
We're getting Knuckles back too, right?
We're getting Knuckles back, man.
We're getting Knuckles back.
Knuckles back.
So he